All right, we are live. Good evening, everyone. My name is Seisha. I'm the social media manager here at Charis Books and at Charis Circle. And tonight we are so excited to welcome Becca Rea-Tucker for a celebration of The Abortion Companion, an affirming handbook for your choice and your journey, a warm, accepting, non-judgmental, and stigma-free companion for your abortion journey. And we're so excited to have the incredible Kwajelyn Jackson as our conversation partner tonight. Kwajelyn Jackson currently serves as executive director at Feminist Center for Reproductive Liberation in Atlanta, Georgia. Since 2013, she has led the expansion of Feminist Center's statewide and national impact and deepened its community partnerships, leading the organization's civic engagement, advocacy, education, and outreach teams before becoming the organization's first Black woman executive director in 2018. Thank you so much, Kwajelyn, for being here and being in conversation with our guest of honor tonight, Becca Rea-Tucker, who is a reproductive rights advocate, baker, and author whose work merges activism and dessert. Through her platform, The Sweet Feminist, she shares resources and writing that challenge shame and anti-abortion misinformation. Her work explores stigma, self-compassion, and bodily autonomy. She is also the author of the cookbook Baking by Feel, which sold out immediately. She lives in Austin, Texas with her husband, daughter, and dog. I want to remind the audience in person and online that there will be a Q&A towards the end. So if you have any questions and you're in person, just keep them in your head until I pass the mic around. But if you're online, you can leave questions in the chat and I'll voice them as we get to that portion of the event. And of course, a reminder that buying your book from Charis directly supports our work and allows us to keep putting on free events like this. So if you would like to purchase a copy of The Abortion Companion, you can do so with a BAO up front. But I'm going to hand it off to Becca, who's going to start our evening off with a reading.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I am going to start with a reading from a section called Stigma Lies, because I love talking about anti-abortion stigma. That's like a huge part of this book, so we'll start off with that. Stigma Lies. Getting rid of abortion stigma is in my top 5 goals in life. The other goals mainly involve things like having a huge amount of fun with my baby, living in a house with a wraparound porch on a seaside cliff, and learning how to make my own paper. Stigma is at the root of some really bad shit, and it tells us a lot of lies. It says that we really shouldn't have abortions, but if we do, then we have to at least be appropriately ashamed about it. It claims that having an abortion is a last resort that we only deserve in certain and ever-changing circumstances. None of that is true, but it can be pretty hard to believe because the stigma is everywhere. Mm-hmm. We're constantly told abortion is generally immoral and unacceptable. And what else are we supposed to think when it's some form of illegal in 41 states? Criminalization reinforces stigma and makes having abortions feel illicit when it isn't. And even if we're taught that it's technically okay, it's often in the sense that it's okay for other people. It's nearly impossible for me to imagine now, but a past version of me actually uttered the phrase, "Of course abortion is okay, but I could never have one." Like, ma'am, why not? There's a really long answer to that, but here's the short version. Society insists that there are 2 categories, the kind of people who have abortions and the kind of people who don't, and this distinction is a total myth. In my dream world, abortion would be presented as such a normal part of life that it seems to have always existed in our consciousnesses. But when I was growing up, I only heard abortion spoken about in hushed and allegedly appropriately reverent tones. Who wants to share their abortion story if there's a good chance it'll be met with judgment? Because it's rare for people to talk openly about their abortions, having abortions seems much rarer than it actually is. And when we don't hear other people's stories, we assume we're alone. I had my daughter when I was 31. I noticed a stark difference between how I was treated when I was a fully acknowledged adult who planned to continue the pregnancy versus a young college student who planned to have an abortion. All pregnant people in all situations should be supported and respected, but that's not the case because abortion stigma is tied in messy knots with racism, classism, and misogyny. Shame shouldn't be the price we have to pay for having abortions.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Becca. And I think that was the perfect selection to read because there's nothing stigmatizing about the way you've approached abortion in this book.
Thank you.
I think that providing a cozy view of abortion is exactly what this feels like.
Yeah. That's what I was hoping, so I'm glad.
That's what you like to me.
Yeah. So the book is written to be helpful, like whether you had an abortion 30 years ago, whether you are at a clinic today, whether you want to just support someone else. So it's like a hodgepodge of things in here. It's meant to, you can open to any page and hopefully there's something for you there. So it's like a mix of meditation, an anger meditation to release the anger of like, I'm so pissed that I had to like, drive 4 hours and have a waiting period or whatever it is. There's a section about like, what is an abortion? What happens when you have an abortion? Like an abortion 101 section, because a lot of people don't even really know what that looks like. And that was reviewed by Dr. Kwajelyn Jackson, who is an amazing abortion provider in Texas.
Yes.
And that, it just has history stuff. It has a list of comfort movies for after your abortion. It has scripts for how to talk to people in your life, as well as scripts for people who are supporting people who have abortions, because sometimes people don't know, what to say. They want to help. They're afraid of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. So it's a mix of things, which hopefully will reach everyone.
How long were you working on sort of like the concept to reality of this companion?
Yeah. So I have a platform called The Sweet Feminist where I started by putting feminist messages defined broadly on cakes. And I did that for several years, but I decided that I wanted to focus more specifically on abortion. So I had my abortion as a college student, but I didn't talk about it for 5 years. So even when I started The Sweet Feminist, I was talking about, I'm pro-choice, abortion is okay, but I wasn't talking about my own abortion. I wasn't comfortable. No, I wasn't comfortable claiming that yet. And I think that took like a year of talking about it to do that. But I learned so much from other repro people online, from like, there are people who are doing this work and are doing it in such a positive, joyful way. And I really wanted to be a part of that. And so, I don't know. The book is like stuff that I've been writing for a long time, like almost a decade, but I really wanted it to live in book form because we are so suppressed on the internet. Like nobody sees my content because I talk about abortion. And so I really wanted there to be a physical place for all these things that I've written in different various places. And I also really wanted to have something that was like a physical marker in the world, like on a shelf, because there are so many anti-abortion messages everywhere. You can't go anywhere without seeing a billboard, basically. So I really wanted a physical book to exist in the world.
Imagining like the stigma busting of somebody on the bus holding the abortion companion.
That's my dream.
For somebody else to see. And that unlocking something within them, just seeing that it exists, like,
absolutely.
Maybe my shoulders drop a little bit because I saw somebody else reading this in a park.
That's wonderful. Yeah. My dream is for it to be in high school libraries, bar bathrooms, being passed around from people who need it to someone else who needs it. So that is my dream.
But we can't wait to be a part of making sure that folks who come into the clinic have access to it, and that people that we encounter in community will have access to it as well.
Yes.
So we're really grateful for the ways that you have connected with clinics around the country to try to make sure that this can get into as many hands as possible.
Yeah. I'll talk a little bit about my abortion and circle around. So when I had my abortion, it was at the Emma Goldman Clinic in Iowa.
An independent provider.
Wonderful. We love Emma Goldman. And so I forgot where I was going.
You were talking about your abortion story and your experience in the waiting room.
Yeah. But that wasn't where I was going. Okay. Sorry.
You're okay. You can go anywhere you want.
Let me check. Okay. Yeah. I want to talk about why it's considered niche.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay. So 1 in 4 people who can get pregnant will have an abortion in their lifetime. We know that, but it's still considered a niche topic. Like, it was very hard for me to get this book published because nobody really wants to talk about abortion unless it's like a political book or a historical book or something like that. It's hard to get something like this out in the world, but there are so many versions of it from the anti-abortion crowd. So there are resources, but they're all incredibly stigmatizing, usually religious. One of them that is behind me on the list of abortion bestsellers right now is called The Soul's Hole. Like, it's literally called The Soul's Hole. So
it's a very bad title.
And all of those need people to perform regret, remorse in order to deserve support. And we know that is not the case, that you deserve support no matter how you feel about your abortion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think part of what makes it so difficult for people to share their abortion stories is because the culture tells us that we need to keep it to ourselves. So people are incredibly isolated and might imagine that they're the only ones who are going through what they're going through. So I think like telling your abortion story, even if it takes a little bit of time to figure out the right words or the right way, like I said, can really unlock something in other people.
Right, exactly. I remember now. I connected with the people in the repro movement, and they were so positive and made me feel good about talking about my own abortion. And so I think that that's an important part of this book as well, is that this book is comfy, cozy, positive. I wrote it to sound like I'm your best friend talking to you. That's a big part of it as well.
I agree. And we at Feminist Center have done some like abortion storytelling workshops with folks. And one of the things we really emphasize is your story doesn't have to be like leveraged for a thing.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be a tool. But it can really just be like something that sets you free. And like by you being able to like reconcile your own comfort with your abortion or abortions, you know, you're able to sort of like continue to like live out your reproductive freedom out loud.
Yes. And so there is a section in the book called Your Abortion Story, where I invite you to explore your abortion story. You know, that could look like a different thing for everyone. I wrote mine down. And when I was like trying to figure out, is this a good exercise to put in the book? Like, do people need this? When I did it, it was the most powerful exercise in the book for me. It was very cathartic because you know what you need to hear also. And I was able to write about my abortion story in a compassionate way. And I hadn't been able to do that for a long time. So that's something that I really wish for people reading this book, is to sit with their own abortion story. But it doesn't have to be used for anything, of course. No, you never have to share your abortion story if you don't want to.
And I think also giving people permission to be honest about their abortion experiences, because everybody's abortion stories are not joyous. Sometimes they are very complex. They have a lot of different things that they entail, but it's still important to be able to process it for yourself.
And I will read something that I wrote at the end. So there's nothing you could write that would mean you aren't deserving of support, compassion, and respect. And there's nothing you could write here that would make me judge you. So I want people to hear that, because for a lot of people, they've never heard that. Like, sometimes I talk to older people who had their abortions, 30, 40 years ago, and they say like they maybe have never even talked to anybody about it. They've never shared anything, or like they've never been told, oh no, you're not going to go to hell, because that was what they heard at the time. But there wasn't someone there to say that's not the case. You don't have to carry that shame around with you forever.
I have found in the time since the Dobbs decision in 2022, like more and more people feeling compelled to talk about not just their abortion stories, but their pregnancy stories, their miscarriage stories, like all of these experiences that they have been holding, that had just sort of been like sitting like a stone. And so again, having something like this that invites people in to explore and think about and perhaps grieve or celebrate is like really a lovely invitation.
So like something I introduced in Baking by Feel, my first book, is this concept of emotional agnosticism. And that's how I approach this as well. I say that there's no singular experience of an abortion. You deserve support, no matter what that looks like for you, no matter what your feelings are. And those feelings could change over time. Like, my feelings about my abortion at the time are very different than the feelings I have now.
When people talk to me about like what we experience at Feminist Center, they're often asking like, who are the people who have abortions? And there are like uncountable experiences. Like we can't like paint a picture of like this is the kind of person, because there are as many as there are stars in the sky. Those are the reasons that somebody might need an abortion, choose an abortion, want an abortion, have an abortion. And so like being able to like make sure that people feel cared for in that while they are in the process of receiving that from a provider is really important to us and to a lot of independent providers around the country.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you. I'd love to talk about why. Well, okay, let's talk about who has.
Yeah.
So we're told that like there's two categories: people who have abortions, people who don't, and the people who have abortions are definitely not parents. And that is not the case, because the majority of people who have abortions are already parenting.
Absolutely.
And that is really important to me, because when I had my abortion, I knew that I wanted to have children later. Like that was always something I knew I wanted, but it wasn't something that I wanted then. And I was very afraid that I wasn't going to be able to enjoy that experience, that I didn't, you know, it was going to be tainted. Like this is the second round or whatever. But I am here to tell you that is not the case. For me, I have a 2-year-old and she is amazing and wonderful. So yes, it's not two groups of people.
Absolutely. I mean, again, many of the folks who come to get care from us are parenting. Sometimes they need to bring their children with them in order to come and receive care from us. The same people who need funds to support their abortion also need funds for formula and diapers. Like they are the same people.
Exactly.
And we are just as invested in people having like good and safe abortion experiences as we are in people having safe and healthy pregnancies.
Absolutely.
And the ability to parent the children that they have, because reproductive justice is at the core of this work. And so like this idea that like abortion is like the opposite of pregnancy and parenting is just simply
it's crazy. True. I mean, it's just wild.
The number of babies who are just like bopping around clinics, you would be amazed.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about a little bit about restrictions, maybe.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and why restrictions are always harmful. There's no restriction that is a positive restriction.
Restrictions are incredibly difficult to overcome. And so the folks who are online, if you live in Georgia, you might already be familiar with the laws here. But for folks who are not familiar, Georgia has a current 6-week ban. And it means that we cannot provide abortion care beyond the point at which fetal cardiac activity is detectable via ultrasound. So it's not explicitly 6 weeks to the day.
Sure.
It is a fetal development ban. There are exceptions, but the exceptions are narrow and in some instances confusing. And so many people are left behind. In addition to all of those things, there's been decades of laws that have attempted to erode and chip away at people's ability to get care, whether it's a parental notification or waiting periods or restrictions on the ways that the clinic can actually be shaped and designed. It's really, really tough.
Right. The doorways have to be a certain,
It's really, really tough. And so like trying to overcome that and for folks trying to navigate like what's happening in Tennessee versus what's happening in Virginia.
Yeah. And it changes every day. And I like to say that it's not possible to draw lines in a way that keeps everyone safe. And there's no point in which the government should decide what happens to your body.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of people, even those who would identify themselves as pro-choice or are invested in abortion, sometimes have difficulty with abortion later in pregnancy. But like we can talk a little bit about the ways that this sort of like invisible line of viability has been used to try to keep abortion access contained.
Right. So even I said in the reading, I said 41 states have some form of restriction, and lots of people don't use that number because they aren't including viability limits in that number. But we know that people have abortions later in pregnancy for all kinds of reasons. Like some of those are the the pregnancy is not progressing in a healthy way. You're leaving an abusive relationship. You couldn't get childcare or time off work. You have to drive, 12 hours and wait. And so
you had to try to raise enough money, save enough money in order to afford it, even as the time elapsing continues to make the cost go up. There's lots of reasons why somebody might need to have an abortion later in pregnancy, but again, as a reproductive justice advocates, abortions are necessary when they're necessary.
Yep.
And it's not actually up to us to decide that, like, oh, well, this is past this point, it's we're no longer pro-abortion.
Right.
If we're pro-abortion, we're pro-abortion.
I support everybody who has an abortion. I don't need to know anything about it to know that.
Whatever their reason is, the right reason.
Absolutely. Yes, that's so important. What should we talk about next? Oh, I do remember where I got lost again, but I
love it.
People who are anti-abortion, people who say that they would never have abortions, have abortions.
Absolutely.
Religious people have abortions, and I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there. Like, everyone, you never know when you're going to need access to care, and that is if you intend to stay pregnant as well, because sometimes you need an abortion when you meant to continue the pregnancy. So you never know, and then the restrictions put all pregnant people at risk, not just people who plan to have an abortion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll offer two little anecdotes to that. One, if you ask, abortion providers around the country, how many of the people who have protested outside of their facilities have then made appointments, received care, and then after they've recovered, found themselves still back out there on the picket line. It happens more often than you would imagine, because they are able to reconcile and justify why it was important and necessary for them, but are still would like to be a barrier for other people being able to get the same care that they were able to receive.
Right.
Don't
love that.
No, I mean, we want them, regardless of what they choose to do after they have their abortion, they still deserve to have it. So we would never say, oh, you're a protester, we don't want you in here. We want, again, everybody who wants and needs to have access to abortion care to have it.
Yep.
But the sort of like compartmentalization of like, my abortion was necessary and this other person's isn't.
Yeah.
Is certainly something that comes up. But people don't have to separate themselves from their faith. Yep. People don't have to like leave parts of who they are at the door. There's certainly space for people to be able to bring all of that complexity when they're coming in for care.
That's absolutely the case too. And I do have a section in here about how you're not going to hell and how there is support from religious communities for you. You deserve that support from your religious communities. There's a really cool group in Austin where I live, where they are organizing reproductive freedom congregations in Texas. And I was a religious studies major as an undergrad. So I'm like, you don't get to claim the religion.
There's a short documentary that came out about Feminist Center
on HBO, right?
On HBO, called "The Devil Is Busy," that tells the story of our security supervisor, and she brings her faith with her to work every single day. She prays over our space. Yep. She has never felt conflicted in her faith tradition, in feeling loved by God, and wanting to make sure that the people who come to get care from us feel cared for when they come in.
Absolutely. There is a book I read this past year called Beyond Limits by is it Sela or Sela?
I think it's Sela.
Okay, Dr. Sela. And she has a short story in there about someone who had come to her clinic in New Mexico, I think from like Alabama or something, to get an abortion later in pregnancy. And her church fundraised. They fundraised the entire thing. They knew why they were going. They were very supportive of them. And I just think that's such a beautiful anecdote that is not in line with the narratives that we're fed about people who have abortions and people who support people who have abortions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about how the difference between us and the anti-abortion movement is that we want for you whatever you want for yourself.
That's it.
Whether that's pregnancy, whether that's an abortion, whatever it is, that's what I want for you. And the anti-abortion people only want one path.
Correct.
For you.
Correct.
Yeah.
I was once tricked into a debate on a podcast.
Were you?
Yes, it was very rude. I was invited to come and speak, and then they were like, actually, we have somebody to give a counterpoint.
Roast.
But part of what they talked about was how, well, we are both sort of like presenting our guidance to people. And I was like, I don't go door to door and ask people if they want to have an abortion. I'm providing a service to people who ask for it.
Absolutely.
And so if at any point someone who comes in for care at Feminist Center changes their mind and says, actually, I think I want to continue this pregnancy, then we stop right there.
Absolutely.
Then we say, how can we make sure that you have what you need to have a healthy and safe pregnancy?
Yeah.
Because that's equally important to us.
Absolutely.
So there's never this sort of like, our organization was founded on the principles of patient-centered, that they are in control of the care that they receive. And our job is to be able to provide it as close to their vision as possible within the limits of the law.
Yes. And I know a lot of people say that their abortion experience was the best healthcare experience that they've ever had. I wonder if you can speak to that a little bit.
I mean, a lot of the ways that we try to not just think about people as their body parts, not just think about people as this one experience, but really invite them into sharing more about the conditions of their life and the things that they need. We can't provide it all. So like, but we are in relationship with organizations all around the city and the state. And so if people are facing housing insecurity, if people are facing violence in their homes, if people are, need access to other kinds of support, we want to be able to help them through that, and make sure that they know that we don't know more than them about their lives. They are the experts in their lives all the time. We can answer questions, but their questions are the ones that are important.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so beautiful that it's so patient-centered as a whole person instead of this isolated event.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do have a section in the book talking about how it's not just two paths. A vision where you have an abortion, a vision where you don't have an abortion, like your life is like that. This isn't the singular defining moment of your whole life.
Sure. I mean, again, this idea that you have, ideally in the society that we're trying to build, people have a multitude of options. And I think that, as a culture, like our insistence on binaries is to our detriment.
Absolutely.
To imagine that there's only like two ways to be.
Right.
If you're a person who has a uterus, it's very limiting.
Yeah. And not true to people's experiences at all. Yeah.
Not
it's just a made up, thing.
Not at all. Absolutely. And I think that like the Turnaway study is a really great example of data that was collected around people who were not able to access the abortion that they wanted at the time that they needed, and following up with those folks to better understand like what happened next. Because once they leave us, we don't know what happens next. But being able to have that kind of research that helps people to see like how they were able to make the next choice.
Right. And that the same Turnaway study tells us that the vast majority of people who had an abortion 5 years later say that was the right decision for them. I think it's 98. Yeah, 98% of people 5 years later said that they made the right decision for themselves. Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah. One thing I want to talk about is how imagination is so important to our movement, imagining something better. There's so much creativity in our movement, finding ways around all the legal stuff, all the stigma stuff. And in the book, I invite you to think about what would a world without anti-abortion stigma look like.
Yeah.
And like, I deeply believe, like, we're getting there. Like, I believe it. Like, anti-abortion stigma is not going to be forever. So I just think it's a nice thing to imagine. If it wasn't here, what do we have? What does that look like?
I love this exercise in the book. It really is similar to one that I do really often. I actually just talked about it. I was on a live earlier and I just shared this exact same thing. I'm gonna share it with y'all too. So if you saw it then, you're gonna see it twice. I learned this, I did not make this up. I learned this at the op-ed project, but it was called like telescoping vision. And this idea is that you imagine 100 years from now. 100 years from now is all new people. And so you imagine this world 100 years from now where there's no abortion stigma. There may be a lot of other things that we don't need. Sure. But once you like really immerse yourself in like, what does it feel like, look like, smell like, taste like, all of those things, then you say, okay, in order for that 100-year vision to become real, what has to happen in 50?
Yep.
And in order for that 100-year vision to become real, what needs to happen in 20? What needs to happen in 7? What needs to happen in 3? What needs to happen this year, this month, this week? What can I do today that's going to get us 1 inch closer to that 100-year vision? Mm-hmm. So being able to like hold it and make it feel tangible and real, and then being able to tie it to your actions that you take right now. So because I went to Piedmont Park and I read this book on a hill and I chatted with somebody who was walking their dog, in 100 years, no abortion stigma.
Love it.
In 3 years, no abortion stigma.
Like that. So beautiful.
But that's the exercise of
absolutely.
saying that like we are not helpless in this moment.
No.
But we actually have to be able to like attach ourselves to the thing that we are striving for.
Yeah.
We can't just sit in the rage.
Yeah.
But we can tear some paper up.
Of course, we can do that too. Let's talk about what those things are right now that we can do to get to that vision. One of the things that I do is saying the word abortion. I mean, it's very recently that politicians even said the word abortion, and that is because of pressure from people saying, stop saying reproductive healthcare, say abortion if you mean abortion.
It is because of our dear friend, Renee Bracey.
It is Renee. It is specifically Renee. Yes. Her book is amazing.
Absolutely.
Liberating Abortion. If you haven't read that,
I'm sure that it's over there on the shelves if you want to pick it up.
Yeah.
But yes, I think you're exactly right. I think wearing like abortion is okay on your t-shirt is busting stigma.
Yes.
I think like being the kind of person that can compassionately listen to somebody else's story, and making sure that the people that you love know that you are a safe place for them to share.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like written on a cake.
No.
It can just be a quiet conversation over tea. Mm-hmm. And I think it does a tremendous amount.
Right.
Donating to your local abortion fund is busting abortion stigma.
It is. Yes.
There's a lot that we can do.
There is a lot we can do right now. Yeah. Okay. Should we do Q&A?
Sure. Sounds good to me.
Okay.
What y'all got?
Anyone from online? Have questions in person?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to articulate this.
Do you want the microphone?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer like just so the folks. Oh, we know, absolutely for accessibility. Happy to.
Hi, Danette.
Hi.
Pleasure to be here. I'm really, what you all just said right now is really resonating with me, because so much of what we're hearing right now is all about the backsliding, which is real. And something I've been sitting with a lot is like, I don't want to go back to before a people in the backsliding. It was always there. It was just affecting some populations more than others.
Correct. Right.
And so in this exercise that you are proposing and inviting us into, what does it mean to be able to imagine beyond even what we've known, right? And I just appreciate so much just how like Black feminism and Black sci-fi have always just like done that creative work of imagining what hasn't existed yet, but what could be. And I think what I'm looking for here is just like some hope, right? That like we're still here, we're still going to be here, and that there are things that we can be doing. So anything that you're able to speak to more around that, because even those practical things like, yes, I can be a safer space for someone. I can wear a t-shirt. Like that just like blew my mind right now, because that is absolutely like helping to address and reduce stigma. And sorry,
keep going. You got it.
Within that imagining that you all are speaking to so strongly, of realizing a world where there is less or no abortion stigma, like how that's interconnected with all these other oppressions, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That means this is a world where the bodily autonomy of cis women is no longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that then blows up the whole binary as well, right?
Correct.
That means that people can just be who they are and become who they are going to become. And so maybe that's what I'm saying, right? Like, so with those other oppressions, right? Like what are other like small actions that we can be taking each and every day to be keeping that light aflame?
I love that. I love that. And that's exactly what the exercise calls for, is for like when you're thinking, I'm gonna talk about what I do, because I do this on a regular basis. I'm not even lying to you. I do this all the time. Like when I am thinking about that 100-year future, like I am trying to be as audacious, as ridiculous, as radical, of like, okay, what if there are like literally no borders? What if there's literally no money? What if there are literally no cops? Like what is there? If those things are not, what is there?
Yeah.
And so I do think, to your earlier point about like, we're not trying to return back to something that was not sufficient. We're trying to build something that is actually powerful and necessary for all of us. And by all of us, I don't mean the United States of America. I mean all of us on the planet Earth having the things that we need. And so like doing that work, and then as you are coming back to the present, being able to make those connections, to say that in order for there to be no abortion stigma, there also needs to be no poverty, because people need to be able to have the resources to care for themselves and their families. Like all of those things have to work in concert with one another. And so I think building those connections and then having those conversations with people about, this is what I learned when I did this exercise. This is how I can see that giving to an abortion fund and giving to a food bank are a part of the same work. Right. So those are the things. And then I think the last thing I'll say, and I'm going to toss it back to Becca, is just, I think being able to be like connected to a political home or multiple political homes. I'm not talking about a political party. I'm talking about a place where your organizing can be sharpened, where your analysis can be deepened, where your community can be like cultivated, and like letting that also help to inform your next step, so that when you're doing your 100-year vision, you're able to interlock it with somebody else. So it's not just what you're imagining in your head, you're also seeing the complexity of your comrades and their vision and how they work together.
Yeah, and a lot of what I know about the imagination stuff comes from the abolition movement, specifically Mariam Kaba. I've never heard anyone talk about like, we need to imagine what will be there. That's right. Instead of what will not be there.
That's right.
And so one example of how it's different from last time, I think you mentioned like we're backsliding, but abortion pills are available in our communities. And that is very different from pre-Roe. And so there are other things like that where people say, oh, people are going to die not accessing legal care, but legal doesn't mean safe necessarily. And so, yeah, within our own communities, having that knowledge about things like pills is critical to surviving in this place and also imagining something bigger. Yeah. I'm
gonna hand you the mic.
The prison and police abolition movement specifically. I didn't say that.
Yeah, but Mariam Kaba is the truth.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for being here. So I hope this isn't too winding of a question, but okay. So we're in like the age of like mis and disinformation.
Yep.
People have really firmly held beliefs and can also like slide into them. And then there's also the stuff of like people within their congregations, like believing that there's going to be like the rapture and then it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they like double down. A lot of times they do. my question in regards to abortion, like women's reproductive health, like how can you be in conversation with someone, and if you start seeing like little red flags about their beliefs, kind of start to open their mind to the idea that there's another reality, or try to have them have an open conversation with you instead of digging in further. The other thing I wanted to say is that we're starting a little feminist generation chapter in Atlanta. And so we just watched The Devil is Busy as like a group. So we're super excited to hear from you today. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Do you have thoughts about how to talk to people who are kind of entrenched in their beliefs?
Okay, so first of all, I do say I write and create for people who have abortions and the people who love us. So I don't moderate what I say to something that might be palatable for someone that is anti-abortion, but it is important for us to reach them. So what I do is I talk about people who have abortions and abortions and abortion in general with the utmost respect, the utmost compassion, empathy. So I try to model that behavior for them rather than saying, hey, like, stop doing that. I think that's sort of more impactful to model what it looks like to be that for someone.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that demonstrating dignity it can be really powerful. I think I'm gonna be honest, like I don't have a lot of conversations with anti, so I'm not gonna say like I've been successful. But like part of what I try to do is like enter into conversations with curiosity and ask a lot of questions about why they believe what they believe and where they learned it and where it came from and how it served them, and just really try to like uncover and learn more and try to figure out if there is an entry point that's like underneath the like main headline talking points that they received from XYZ organization.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of our time, I worry if there are people who you already love, who you're already in a relationship with, who already trust you, those are the people where you have the most like ground to gain. Like, fighting with people on the internet is not worth anybody's time.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just like, it's not worth anybody's time.
Yeah.
But like people who you are in genuine relationship with that you care about, who care about you, those are the people that it's worth it to just be curious about, like, where did you hear it? And what does that mean to you?
Yeah. And I do see this a lot on the Sweet Feminist platform. I have, people commenting and sending me messages. So I do see people through the evolution of, I don't know how I feel about abortion. Now I'm pro-choice. Now I'm pro-abortion. And so I do see the whole evolution. But for a lot of people, like, I think even trying to talk to them about, like, is this even your thought? Like, where does this value system, where does the thought come from?
Yep.
Like, do you actually think that people shouldn't be able to be safe at home with their families? That's really the question we're asking. Is that really what you think? And some people are like, no.
Right.
Generally, these people are already, leaning on the pro-choice side. But I have seen some evolution, not really from full anti. I don't talk to full anti.
I mean, what I feel like I've learned about like the public, we talk about how abortion is like extremely popular, right? But I find that most people are indifferent. There are people who are very fervent, like us, who are talking about it all day, every day, and it's like their whole job. And there are people who hate it, and it's their whole job to try to extinguish it. And then there's millions and millions and millions of people who have not thought about it until somebody they cared about needed it, or they needed it for themselves.
Yep.
And those are the people that I want us to be able to reach into and connect with. The people who are just like, I didn't even know this was a thing until 2022.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of those folks.
There are. And one of the challenges with that is trying to funnel them where they need to go. And
yes.
Yeah. I'm so glad that there are more people, but we need them to be go a certain
or just decide to take an action.
Exactly.
They don't have to wear the t-shirt if they're not ready to wear the t-shirt, but decide to not allow it to persist. Decide to be a safe place for somebody to talk about their experience. Decide to give somebody a ride. Like that. That's what I want.
And those are very simple caretaking things that people like to do for other people.
Exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, giving someone an opportunity to do that can be really beautiful as well. Yeah.
We have a two-part question from Phyllis online. Phyllis says, I'm currently writing a memoir about my abortion in 1970, which was illegal and traumatizing, and my 50-year journey of overcoming shame and secrecy. Phyllis's two-part question, they say, I am both pro-life and pro-choice, or more accurately, I navigate the space in between those beliefs. My goal is to use my book to create spaces where women can support each other and rise above politics that seek to pit us against each other. Where can I connect with others in Metro Atlanta who share my approach? And Phyllis's second question is relating their current book about abortion back to their first book about racial justice and healing. How do those two connect?
Yeah. I mean, at first I'll say that I'm really sorry that you had a traumatizing abortion experience. I don't wish that on anyone. And it's really unfortunate that not only was that happening in the 70s, but that it's also happening now.
Yes.
That people are having very scary and very stressful experiences trying to access care.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you're writing your memoir and sharing your story with everybody else. I think that will be really powerful. As to the in Atlanta organization,
I mean, there are many reproductive health rights and justice organizations in Atlanta. We are rich in that regard. So, obviously, Feminist Center is here. Access Reproductive Care Southeast, or ARC Southeast, which is our abortion fund that serves 6 states in the Southeast. Amplify Georgia Collaborative, which is a collective of organizations that are mostly working on taking collective action politically, both locally and statewide. Spark Reproductive Justice Now, which centers the experiences of Black women and queer and trans folks. Sister Song, Women of Color Reproductive Justice Collective, who are doing a lot of culture work around reproductive justice and bodily autonomy. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I'm not even going to hold you. But any one of those organizations, and there are others that I wasn't even able to name, get on their newsletter, come to their membership meetings, consider making a donation to support their efforts. But we are building community. We are gathering and organizing people in Atlanta and across the state. So I would invite anybody on the Zoom or in the room to plug in, because there's plenty of space to collaborate and connect with people who've had abortions, people who have supported people through abortions, people who provide abortions, and also folks who are supporting birth and pregnancy and parenting.
Yeah. Great. Yes.
So I'm not sure how to word this as a question, but you're talking about how your goal is like emotional agnosticism.
Yeah.
And something that I think I still struggle with, I guess, as it relates to stigma when talking about abortion. Like, I'm very open about mine. I have no problem about it, but the humor of it and versus the reverence, because joking sometimes in an off-color way about it, with my friends, helps me, but sure. I know not everyone. There's a lot of reverence around abortion stories, and I guess that is probably still the most difficult aspect for me to broach with people, is not trying to trivialize their experience, sure. but not also making it this really huge serious thing either.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, and that's even within our own sure. Movement that people do that. Yeah.
See, I guess just if either of y'all could speak to that.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts?
You go first.
Okay. I mean, I think that's really valid. And it's certainly something that we try to, when we're either engaging in community or with patients who come to us, letting the person whose story it is sort of lead the way of how they want to approach it. Some people, again, it is sacred, it is solemn, it is somber. Some people, it is silly. It is,
Yeah.
it is joyous. Some people, it is like, it was a thing that happened. It was I went to an appointment and then I came home.
Yeah.
And so like making sure that there's space for people to sort of have their own, like lead the conversation about like how they want to talk about it. And I don't think that there's a wrong way to be a good listener, and making space for folks to talk about it in the way that they need to. The other thing I was going to recommend that's sort of, I don't know if she's still recording, but there used to be a podcast called The Abortion Diaries, where an activist, Melissa Madera, would just record and just let people talk. Some people talked about things that they felt, sad or grief about. And some people talked about like a really funny thing that happened, that they remember about their abortion, but like really honoring that every abortion story is that person's abortion story. And trust, if you are treating people with dignity, that you'll be able to hold people's stories.
Yeah, so there's room for all of the abortion experiences, the sad ones, the happy ones, all of them in between. But I think as we share more stories, there will be more frameworks that are normalized. So the reverence maybe won't be the primary thing that we see as the narrative when people talk about their abortions. Just as we get more people talking in general.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
One more?
I struggle with a lot of things, so I'm going to phrase this as another thing I struggle with. For context, I just moved back to Atlanta. I was living in the Triangle, North Carolina, working with quote unquote reproductive justice organizations there. And I say that because my question gets at, how do we address the co-opting of reproductive justice by white Euro-American women, cis white Euro-American women, and the de-queering of reproductive justice by the same? In the body that I am in, I see and experience so clearly all these oppressions and how they're linked. And previous Trump administration, any administration in this country, right, I can continue to be surprised by the surprise of cis white Euro-American women around the issues that we've been talking about always. And that's really what I struggle with most at this time. It's not the anti-anything, because I've been knowing what they're like.
Sure.
But it's that within liberal and progressive spaces, I'm having to argue with people that I thought were on our side.
Yeah.
That's what makes me tired every damn day. And so as far as like where I'm putting my time and energy, I'm definitely focusing it on Black and brown folks, especially queer, trans, Black and brown folks. And I know we all have to work together to get free. And so what is it that is already happening, just for me to get some inspiration, but also what more can be happening at this critical time, so that we are really promoting and leaning into radical empathy and deep curiosity around the lived experiences of Black and brown folks who understand keenly what is going on right now and have developed strategies and practices to be able to get us from where we are to a better future for all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like with a lot of things, it's like reinventing the wheel. They want to start from not knowing what's already been here. And especially like I live in Texas, the organizing in the South is just so beautiful to see. Like before things happen elsewhere, like what people are surprised, oh my God, we're going to have a 6-week ban in, I don't know, somewhere in the North. But we've already been doing that in the South. Like people know how to organize, and we need to listen to the people who've already been doing the work for a really long time, instead of, coming in and being like, let's go to Planned Parenthood, let's give $100 to Planned Parenthood. And I think, giving people historical knowledge is really important to understand, like what has to happen now for white women specifically, for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to separate reproductive justice from like racial liberation. Like white supremacy also has to be defeated in order for us to have no abortion stigma.
Yeah.
And so being in community with people and like holding our values at the centerpiece of our organizing, being able to establish alignment that allows for us to call each other in ways that will make us sharper, and being willing to move without people who are not ready to like accept and follow the lead of the people who are the most marginalized. Like that's part of what has to happen. And I think like building out that sort of like, that's why I say like have like building a political home where you are not just coming to say like, I'm here to save, I'm here to fix, you all been waiting on me, but to actually be transformed in the service of the work. There's a longtime activist here in Atlanta, Mary Hooks, who I quote very often, who said the mandate for Black people in our time in particular, is to avenge the suffering of our ancestors, to, oh gosh, I'm not going to remember the middle, to, it's in my phone, but I'm not going to look at it. But essentially, but to be just transformed in the service of the work is a part of it. Like that, I don't have all the answers that my comrades have. I don't have all the experiences that they have. And so it's necessary for me to be in like deep fellowship and community with people who can make me a better activist for the future that we're trying to build. Mm-hmm. So to not have so much, to not feel like I know everything there is to know. Can't nobody out organize me. I know reproductive justice in up, down, and around. Actually, I've never had an abortion, so I can't speak from that experience. I can talk about what it's like to work in a provider, but I need people who've had abortions to lead the way and to tell us what's necessary for the next step. And so having the humility to be able to do that in organizing spaces makes our spaces stronger, in my opinion. And I think that's one of the things that's really beautiful about the way that we organize in Atlanta, is not only are we like aligned in values, but we have like deep affection for one another. Like we care about what's happening in one another's lives. We are like endeared to one another. And so I think that is the other part that really makes organizing in a place like this feel magical and feel powerful and feel like we're able to accomplish what we need to do. Because we don't play about each other. So I don't know if that's the full answer to your question, but we don't have to compromise our commitment to racial justice, to queer and trans justice. We don't have to put those things to the side and say, we just want to talk about abortion now. It's not possible to do that.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? I feel like I could listen to y'all talk forever. You should start a podcast. But if we don't have any more questions, I just want to thank both of y'all for being here tonight. Thank you, Becca. Thank you, Kwajelyn. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for spending your Thursday night with us. I also want to shout out our co-sponsors for tonight's event, Feminist Center, of course. If you're looking to learn more about that, feel free to talk to Kwajelyn after the event. I also want to shout out ARC Southeast. They provide funding and logistical support to ensure Southerners receive safe and compassionate reproductive care, including abortion services. So if you're looking for two incredible places to put your time and energy and money, there you go. Feminist Center, ARC Southeast.
ARC here who can answer your questions as well.
Amazing, yeah. Charis is also a outpost. We have Plan B and other stuff from ARC Southeast. So we're happy to be in partnership with everyone. And happy that this event came together so amazingly tonight. Thank you all for being here, and especially thank you to Becca for writing this incredible book.
Thank you all for being here. This was wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Oh, so there are envelopes over there. Thank you, envelopes. They have little surprises for you in there. And